Hello everybody and Happy New Year. I hope 2024 is a year of success, health and happiness for you all. So if you have clicked on this video, there's a high chance you are either wanting to start a language from scratch or improve a language in 2024. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 10 useful tips and tricks to learn a language in 2024. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Charlotte and I'm an English teacher from the UK, helping foreign students to learn English. However, I have also studied languages, as I studied 3 languages at university for my degree. I studied French, German and Italian, and nowadays I also try and learn other languages. So in this video, I will be giving advice from the perspective of a student and a teacher combined from what I have learnt over the years. Tip number 1 is set a realistic timetable. First, take a look at your day-to-day commitments and your normal schedule. Ask yourself how much free time do you normally have, and then with that free time, decide how much you would like to dedicate to learning this new language. Remember to be realistic, so if you have 5 hours a week of free time, you probably aren't going to spend all 5 hours learning a language. You're probably going to want to also do other things in your free time too. So be realistic and don't overdo it. Personally, from a teacher's perspective, I have noticed that the students who maybe don't have so much time to study, but they allocate a small amount of time each day or once a week, whatever time they have, and they consistently do this, they see results. Those who say, I'm going to study for 5 hours a day, every day, usually give up within 2 weeks. When you're creating your plan, here are some things that you should think about. So what are your goals? What are you wanting to achieve from learning a language? Do you have a time frame for how long it's going to take you to do certain things? Do you have an exam you have to prepare for example? Then work back from that. Remember to be realistic, because it's extremely unlikely that if you start a new language in January and you give yourself the goal of becoming fluent by March, it is extremely unlikely. So really do try and be realistic. Smaller goals are usually better and build yourself up. When you achieve those small goals, you feel like you have accomplished something. Whereas if you set a really high expectation and a really big goal, you're not going to feel so good when you don't actually achieve it. Also ask yourself, can I truly dedicate this time every week to studying? If not, maybe adjust your schedule so that it's more realistic to your day-to-day routine. Remember in your schedule to try and include different skills on different days, because you really need a mixture of all skills to really understand the language. So think grammar, speaking, listening, reading, writing, etc. The number 2 is be consistent. Now this follows on from our last points. If you are consistent, you will see results. It is a bit like going to the gym or running a marathon. You can't just turn up one day and automatically do it. It will take time. It is more of a journey. It's a process. But if you stick at it, you will see results. And when you finally can do something, it feels so good. The students I often see the most improvement in aren't actually the ones who take lessons every day or 3 times a week. They are usually the students who maybe have 1 lesson per week, but they do their homework. They also do extra activities outside of class. They do a lot of repetition of what we have learnt in class, which really helps them to remember what they have learnt. So try to think of it as sometimes less is more. However, if you stay consistent and you don't burn out from overdoing it, you will improve. You will get better. Of course, if you are studying languages at university, it is going to be a completely different scenario. You are going to have lots of lessons each week, But again, you also need to make sure you have time to go over what you have learnt in class. It will not be enough to just sit in the class itself. Number 3 is learn in context. This next tip is huge. If you are going to take something from this video, please take this. When I was in school, I remember asking my French teacher questions. What does this word mean in English? Or how do I say this word in French? And often I would be confused with her response, because most of the time she would say, well, it depends. Can you tell me what you are trying to say? And this is so true. Especially in English, one word can have more than one meaning, and it can be used in a particular way. This makes learning a language hard because sometimes one word will translate to something, but the same word will also have other translations too. The way you write down vocabulary is very important. It is probably a good idea to keep all your vocabulary in one place, whether that's on the computer, an iPad, or in a notebook, but try and keep it in one place. If you have papers all over the place, it's not going to be very organised and you're not going to want to look through it and you're probably going to lose some of it. However, the way you write down your vocabulary is also really important. Depending on the language may depend exactly what you want to write, so it will differ from language to language, but I'm going to show you some ways that you can write down your vocabulary. Now, let's take the English word mean. Now, mean has many different uses. It can be a verb, what do you mean? It can also be an adjective to describe a person who is not very nice, who is nasty. But it can also be an adjective to do with describing someone's relationship to money, that they are stingy. So, you can see this word has 3 meanings. There are also more meanings to this word, but we will stick with the 3. What I'm going to do is when I learn this word, I am going to write down the different versions of the word and also put next to it what type of word is it. Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Is it a noun? This could be colour coordinated or it could be just a note next to it. I am then going to write some sentences using this word in a sentence and in that context. This will allow me to also see how it can be used. If you don't feel comfortable making your own sentences, try going to the website lingui.com where you can type in the word. If it has your language, it will also give a translation, but you can see examples of it being used in different contexts. There is usually also a translation of this in your language too, especially if you're translating from English to another language, which will help you understand how it can be used. So normally I write down some examples. Translation can sometimes be useful, especially with vocabulary and when you're a beginner, but try not to rely on it. Sometimes if we translate too often, especially when we go to put things in a sentence, we experience problems, especially with grammar and word order, which often differ from language to language. But you could also write a translation if you think it helps you, then any other information which could be useful. So if it's a verb, maybe if it's irregular, you could put the irregular past tense and the irregular past participle, for example. Or if we think of languages like French, German, Italian, Spanish, the nouns are gendered. So you could put in der, die, das, etc., etc. Basically, write down any useful information which concerns the word. Number 4, practice, practice, practice. It's true what they say, if you don't use it, you will lose it. For most people, seeing a grammar concept once or a word once isn't going to be enough for them to be able to use it confidently on their own. This is why practice is key. First of all, you probably want to start with a controlled practice, maybe some exercises from a grammar book or from a workbook. After you are getting these correct, try and adventure away from such controlled practices and try to make your own sentences and try to incorporate the thing you're trying to learn into your speech or into your writing. If you have somebody who can check this, that would be perfect. However, I understand this is not possible for everyone. And remember, once you think you have a concept or some vocabulary, make sure you come back to it in some weeks' time, because if you haven't used it between when you learnt it and now, you may have forgotten it again. So keep practicing and also try and bring back old vocabulary into your new practices. Number 5 is get creative. Who said learning a language has to be sat down at a computer or in front of a book and studying like that? Nowadays with the internet, we have access to everything. And why not use that to your advantage? Try and think of things that you like to do in your free time. Maybe you like yoga, maybe you like cooking. And try and do this in the language that you are learning. For example, if you like yoga, maybe try and find a yoga practice online in that language. If you like cooking, maybe find a recipe which has been written in that language and try and follow it. If you enjoy gaming, maybe change your game settings into that language. If you enjoy doing something, you're more likely to continue doing it. So try and make language learning enjoyable for you and you're more likely to stick at it. Number 6, repetition. Now we have touched upon this one a little bit, but it is a very important one, so I have given it its own category. It is very important that whatever you study, you need to repeat and practice with it. Piling more and more knowledge on top of what you have already learned is good, but you need to make sure what you already have, you know and you can use. So make sure that you go back and you keep practicing and maybe take those things and include them in your current work so that you are repeating everything that you are doing. Okay, the next one is practice speaking. Speaking is one of the most challenging parts of learning a language, and it can be difficult due to the lack of practice, also confidence, and usually a lack of opportunities. However, you don't need to be in a class or in the country to practice speaking. You can also do it on your own. I'm going to give you some different ways in which you can practice even if you don't have somebody to practice with. The first one is shadowing. Shadowing is basically like being a parrot. This is very good if you are trying something which is higher than the level you are, because it allows you to listen to the language being used correctly by usually native speakers, and you can copy what they are saying, learn the vocabulary and also their pronunciation. You could do this listening to podcasts, videos, or snippets of native speakers speaking. Second of all, talk to yourself. I know it sounds crazy, but it works. If at the end of every day you spent 5 minutes retelling your day to yourself out loud, you are going to help your fluency. A lot of people get stuck. They know the vocabulary, they know the grammar, but they just can't get it out. Practice getting it out. It doesn't matter what you say, but see if you can talk at length. Don't worry too much about mistakes. Mistakes are okay, but practice on getting that fluency so that you're not stopping and starting and stuttering all the time. The last one is try and find an app. Nowadays there are many apps for learning languages, and some of these are using AI. But this is great for people who haven't got anybody to talk to practice learning a language, because they can speak to AI and AI typically corrects them. So this can also help you see maybe where you are making mistakes when you are speaking. It may take a bit of investigating and trial and error to find an app that suits you, but probably there are some out there. I know for English there are definitely some apps out there that some of my students use. Lastly, if you want to find someone to practice with, try finding a language exchange partner. When I was at university, this was an amazing experience for me because it allowed me to practice the language I was studying, and I could also help teach someone English. We usually became very good friends, and it was a way to learn a language, share culture, and also have a good time. An alternative is to find a teacher or a class that you would like to join, depending on where you live and also depending on the language you are wanting to study. There could be classes in your local area that you could go and meet new people, and then you can practice with them outside of class. Otherwise, there are many online teachers and online classes where you're able to practice speaking in a different language. Tip number 8, use AI. Use AI to your advantage. It is out there, it's everywhere nowadays, but you can use it to help you practice. Ask AI prompts to give you exercises, worksheets, vocabulary relating to the topic you are wanting to study. You could also ask AI things like, give me a B2 level Italian reading comprehension, for example, and it will give it to you. Remember, AI is not 100% accurate, so it may give you sometimes not so useful things, but it is a very useful tool to give you more practice in the language. Number 9, don't be shy. Shyness can really get in the way of learning a language. It's okay to make mistakes. And in fact, mistakes are good. You learn from mistakes. Some of the most embarrassing mistakes I have made in different languages have helped me remember the correct way of saying it. So take mistakes as a good thing and learn from them. And a big part of this, and something that students often ask me and stress about, is accents. Now, accent does depend on the language a little bit. Sometimes it can make more of a difference to the language, but sometimes it's not as important as you think. You need to learn the vocabulary, the grammar, the structures first to actually be able to speak. Then you can focus on the accent later. And lastly, number 10, connect with other learners. With the internet, it has now become even easier to connect with anyone from around the world. So try finding a study partner. You may both be foreign to the language, but at least you will have someone to study with, to motivate you, and to work with. It can also make studying more enjoyable and fun. Try asking around on language exchange forums, and why not even comment on this video and say you're looking for a language partner for a particular language, and maybe someone else who reads the comments might also think the same, and maybe you can organise something. Okay, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. This year I will be posting more language learning tips as well as the normal English tutorials, so make sure you stick around for more. I wish you all the best with your language learning journey, and I will see you soon. Bye!